Alright guys, welcome back to part 3 in this 3-part tutorial for breeding. This time around we're going to be talking about super dino mutations, or not so much mutations, but rather combining stats from our mutated creatures into singular entities. I guess more or less our baseline process all over again, but this time we're going to be doing it with our mutations as opposed to the wild creatures that we obtained a few episodes back. So we're going to talk about a basic Super Dino variant, and then we're going to talk about I guess, the more refined Super Dino variant. So the refined Super Dino variant is a process called min-maxing, and that essentially means removing the stats that you do not want. So as you can see here, we still got 29 into oxygen and 25 into movement speed, so that's not ideal. And same with our current baseline. So yeah, we'll quickly go through the next lot of mutations. You guys have seen how the mutations is done and the process involved in getting them, so I'm not going to go through that again. I'll just quickly time skip to each mutation, and then we will get into the explanation of a super dino after that, so stay tuned. Alright, so here we have the first mutation. The health has gone from 42 to 44. This was a double mutation, so we got a health mutation, a weight mutation. For the purposes of a super dino, you wouldn't want to mix mutations like that, so do not keep double mutation creatures. This is the proper second mutation, so it's gone from 44 to 46. Remember to constantly swap out your male when you get a new one. If you get a female, remember to breed it with the baseline male. There's the third health mutation, so it's gone from 46 to 48. Remember to keep an eye on the other stats, make sure that none of them change. This is a vital part to making sure that your baselines and your mutation counters are clean. This is the fourth mutation. Take note on the overall level of the creature as well. And the fifth health mutation. So this is the last rung in our health mutation scheme, but essentially for what you guys are wanting to do, just continue this process until you reach whatever desired amount you want. So this baby here is the final product of our health and melee male and female breeding together. So you can tell by the 53 in the melee and the 52 in the health, as well as the much higher overall level of the creature. So we started at 258 for our baselines. As you can see there, our matrilineal has got 5 out of 20 because the female had 5 health mutations. The patrilineal has got 5 mutations for its 5 melee mutations. 5 mutations equates to 10 points. So we added 10 points from the male, 10 points from the female, combined them together, and that gave us the 278 on top of our regular 258 that we had for the baseline. So that's so far so good. That is the basic premise of a super dino, combining your mutated stats into a singular entity. Same process as getting a baseline to begin with. Okay, so here we have what I call a super baseline dino. Now, as you can tell by the stats there, 1 for oxygen, 1 for movement speed, but the other baseline stats that we had for our other baseline females are identical. This overall decreases our overall level for the dino, and I will explain why in just a second that this is important. This is the process of minimizing, maximizing, or min-maxing. Alright guys, so here we have the difference between the two baselines. So what you have on the right hand side is what most people will typically have in regards to their breeding. If you want to get really serious about it and fully maximize the amount of mutations that you want to put into your dinos, then the one on the left will be the one for you. So as you can tell by the difference in the stats, as denoted by the Archimanic Spyglass there, the one on the left will have the 1 in movement speed and 1 in oxygen. Now, as we look at the mutation counters, the 0 out of 20 does not denote how many mutations a creature can have in its own right. It is capable of having far more than that. The 20 limit just refers to the ability for that baby to get a mutation. So if you have a mother and a father with 20 mutations accordingly for each of them, then that baby will not receive a mutation. And likewise, if you have a singular parent, say a singular father that's got 20 out of 20 and a mother that's got 0 out of 20, then the baby can still get a mutation, but it can only come from the mother's side. As soon as that father has reached that 20 out of 20 limit, then that mutation is no longer possible. So the maximum creature level for most creatures is 450, except for tech dinos and I believe Genesis exclusive creatures. But with 450, we need to take away the maximum amount of manual levels we can input into a dino. So that is 73, I believe. And that brings us down to 377. So with 377 being our limit before manual levels are input into the creature, we need to mathematically calculate what our baseline is, and then the difference between the 377 and the baseline that we're dealing with. So over here, I bred a low-level raptor with all these baseline females to help reduce the overall level of the creature. So that was to reduce the oxygen and the movement speed. And thankfully in the baseline, or super baseline in quotation marks as we saw before, that was the exact outcome I was hoping for, as you can see there. So with that being 1-to-1 with the oxygen and movement speed, we lowered our overall level without reducing our health, weight, stamina, or melee. The increased food can be reduced if you want it to be. I just did that so that way the baby doesn't starve out as quickly, or I can leave for longer periods of time without the creature starving out. But with the mutations, you're able to just constantly keep stacking them in there. Just as soon as the male has 20 mutations to his name, that's an extra 40 points in whatever stat you're going for. As soon as he's got those 20 mutations to his name, the baby from then on out will not be able to get any mutations from his side of the ancestry tree. They will all have to come from the females, which will halve your mutation chances by half. So it'll go from the 7.3% in total to a 3.65, I believe is the mathematically correct equation, as well as the double mutation with the 0.18%. They'll go down to 0.09, and the insignificantly low chances of a triple mutation turn into an astronomically low chance of mutation. And that's the basic gist of it, guys. So you can keep breeding, you can keep mutating, just so long as your females are 0 out of 20 for the mutations. The babies will always be able to gain mutations, provided that you stay underneath that stay under that 20 out of 20 limit, and the mutations can just keep on rolling. Now, the maximum stat that you can have on a singular stat is 254. So right now we can see that I've got 43 in melee, so I could add another 211 points into that via mutation, so another 105 mutations into melee if I wanted to, but that will take an exceptionally long time, especially for those of you on official. So I'm not going to demonstrate that would be ridiculous, but that is the basic premise. You can just keep going with it. You've seen the process, I've shown you the process, I've explained how the stats work. The Archimag Spyglass has broken it down. You guys won't have the Archimag Spyglass, but this is just to give you the idea in place about how the stats work, how creature gets its overall level. Remember, the 206 super baseline we're looking at is got 205 stat points altogether with the levels added up. The 258 just to the right of it has got 257 stat points inside those brackets or parentheses, whichever your terminology adheres to. So with the explanation out of the way, I believe this just about wraps up the tutorial. If there is anything that I've missed, if there is anything that I was unclear about, please feel free to leave a comment in the section below, and I'll get back to you and give you as much detail as I possibly can. Remember to watch the first two videos before watching this one, unless you're already fairly adept at at breeding in its own right or stacking mutations, in which case then yeah, okay, watching this first makes sense. But otherwise, to get the groundwork done and build your foundations, make sure you watch the first two videos. And I do hope that you guys have enjoyed this. Drop a like if you have, if it's been informative, if it's been helpful. I'll still be here for informational support. Min-maxing has been covered. The baseline acquisition has been covered. Why we tame a low-end raptor to breed into it to get the lower oxygen and movement speed, that's been covered. And yeah, that is the basic downplay of breeding. This can go for any creature that is breedable. It doesn't just have to be anything that lays eggs. You can do it with mammalian creatures as well. You know, your manigamas, your rhinos, your mammoths. You know, anything that is able to breed can be mutated for whatever stat that you're after. And you just have to determine what stat you deem important and what stat you don't deem important, and that will set you on a good course to creating your first super dino. And yeah, I think that's just about wraps up everything that I've got to say about it. So thank you for watching the mini-series, and thank you for all the support. I will catch you guys in the next tutorial.